The Where Our Minds Wander podcast may contain sensitive content and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Greetings, fellow wanderers, to the places our minds wander.
The house at the end of the dirt road, where disembodied voices whisper and strange sounds make the living shiver.
Where shadows lurk at the edge of the woods, just outside your back door. And mysterious lights speed beyond reason across the clear night sky.
Odd events throughout time that lead you down the rabbit hole.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Beth.
And this is Where Our Minds Wander. Hello, and welcome to Where Our Minds Wander, all you fellow wanderers. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone.
Well, we hope all you wanderers out there are enjoying your summer. Gotta say, we've had a pretty good one. We've packed a lot in, and we're going camping soon.
We are. I'm very excited about it.
I know, it's going to be stellar. And we're headed to Vermont in a couple days to go shopping.
And by the time this episode airs, I will have done my second day of helping at the Revolutionary War Soldier Training Camp.
I know, and the nice thing about that is you get paid pretty well, and all you have to do is walk out the front door and 2 houses down, and you're at the Kent DeLord house.
Yeah, it's a really cool program. It's for kids, and it's basically reenactment 101. So they learn all kinds of things about, doing reenactment stuff. So,
like putting up a tent, they get to fire some muskets.
They fired the cannon at the first one, right? Cook their food, do drills and stuff. It's really cool.
Which is always exciting to hear the cannon go off.
And speaking of guns, that's kind of what started our topic tonight.
Yeah, now, we know a lot of you have probably heard about the Winchester Mystery House before, either through documentaries, other podcasts, or just in shows. But tonight, we might go over some stuff that you haven't heard about before, because tonight, we're going to try to separate some fact from fiction, and we're going to go over the history of the place.
Yes.
And some hauntings, as always.
Yes. And I'm very excited about it. So I'm going to jump right in.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California, has been a popular tourist attraction since 1910. The 24,000 square foot house has 160 rooms with 52 skylights. But even at 160 rooms, the rest of the architectural features don't quite add up. Like the 10,000 panes of glass, 2,000 doors, 47 stairways, 47 fireplaces, 17 chimneys, 13 bathrooms, and 6 kitchens. Now, to give you some perspective, there's more glass in the Winchester house than the entire Empire State Building.
That's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah, it's crazy. The sheer size of the house is overwhelming, especially when you consider that, according to lore, only one person ever lived in the mansion, Mrs. Sarah Winchester. Now, the $5 million price tag for building the mansion, which is about $71 million in today's money, makes sense when you put it into context. At the time, Sarah Winchester was the richest woman in the world, all because of a gun.
Well, not just any gun, one of my favorite guns.
Yes, this gun, of course, is the Winchester repeating rifle, the gun that won the West. And the story about Sarah Winchester is one that you probably already know, like Wes had mentioned. It's been repeated over and over in movies, books and paranormal investigation shows so often that it's pretty much become common knowledge.
Or really has it? Because it's not all truthful.
Right, not the true story.
Not the true story.
The legend and lore, right? So the story, in air quotes, of course, is that after the death of her husband, Sarah Winchester went to visit a New England psychic medium who told her that if she didn't continuously build a house, never laying down the hammer, she would die. She had to constantly renovate her home, or the spirits of all the people killed by a Winchester rifle would come for her. Sarah held seances inside her house in a room built exactly for that purpose, so that she could communicate with the tormented spirits who guided her in the building projects. It didn't matter if new doors opened directly into nothingness or new staircases led to solid walls. It didn't matter if a fireplace had no chimney or the view from a new window was nothing more than an exterior wall a few mere inches away. If she stopped building, her life would end. The Winchester Mystery House is a 24,000 square foot maze of hallways, rooms leading into several other rooms, and constant dead ends. It's pretty easy to get lost in a house like that and never be found, which is why it's also known as one of the most haunted mansions in the entire United States. So, like Wes had said, we thought that tonight we'd look into the Winchester Mystery House just to see what we could find. And believe me, we found a lot. Harry Houdini and Walt Disney both figure into the story, as well as countless historians who have tried to figure out just what drove Sarah Winchester to turn her 8-room cottage into a 160-room behemoth.
So sit back, get comfy, maybe grab your favorite beverage, and let's talk about the Winchester Mystery House.
So, according to biography.com, Sarah Lockwood Pardee was born in 1839 or 1840 in New Haven, Connecticut, to Sarah and Leonard Pardee. Leonard was initially the manager of the city bathing house until he honed his carpentry skills and found success as a carriage maker. The Pardees were abolitionists, and their home was always filled with like-minded and rather progressive thinkers. Sarah was basically a prodigy, learning 4 languages by the time she was 12, and excelling in math, science, and musical composition. She was also rather tiny, just 4'10", and she weighed barely 95 pounds. But she was also beautiful and was often referred to as the Belle of New Haven. She even attended the Young Ladies Collegiate Institute at Yale University. On September 30th, 1862, at the age of 22, she married fellow New Haven resident William Wirt Winchester, the only son of Oliver Winchester. It's likely that the two newlyweds had known each other their entire lives. Sarah's new father-in-law, Oliver, was the co-owner of the Winchester Davies shirt manufactory, and William was expected to take over the family business. But Oliver was also invested in several arms factories, including the Volcanic Arms Company, which he ended up taking over. Soon after, he founded the Winchester Repeating Arms Company in 1866. William, Sarah's husband, sold his shares in the shirt company and became either treasurer or secretary of the arms company. His job differs depending on what source you look at. It was the Winchester Model 1873 rifle that became known as the gun that won the West. And since they sold 700,000 of them between 1873 and 1919, you can kind of see why. But the Model 1894 even outdid that, with over 7,500,000 manufactured and just about as many sold. Buffalo Bill Cody, Annie Oakley, and Teddy Roosevelt all proudly used Winchester rifles. Now, obviously, William Winchester was heir to a massive fortune. But in 1866, the same year that Oliver started the Winchester Arms Company, Sarah and William welcomed their first child, a daughter, whom they named Annie. But baby Annie was unable to process calories, and she suffered from malnutrition. She passed away at just 1 month old. Sarah and William were devastated by this loss, and they never had any more children. For the next 20 years or so, life continued. Contrary to what many websites claim, William did not die soon after the loss of their child. He did die young, though, at age 44. And poor Sarah dealt not just with his loss, but the loss of her mother, sister, and her father-in-law, all within 12 months of each other.
Yeah, she was going through a lot.
Yeah. But a lot of websites say that, her daughter died and then William died, right after. It was 20 years.
Right. Well, you know how they want to kind of perpetuate the story, right?
Right. So Sarah's mother passed away in 1880. Oliver Winchester, who was her father-in-law, also died in 1880. And then in 1881, William succumbed to the tuberculosis that had plagued him for many years. Suddenly, a grieving Sarah found herself the heir to a lot of money. With her 50% stake in the company, it's estimated that she inherited $20 million. That's about $630 million in today's money. One of the very first things that she did was create a $300,000 endowment that resulted in the Winchester Chest Clinic at New Haven Yale Hospital. And then she traveled the world for 3 years. When she returned to the U.S., she moved to California, not because some psychic medium told her to, but because she already had family in California. And remember, at this point, she's a widow with no children and this vast fortune. So she most likely wanted to be near family who could advise her and offer her some comfort. Plus, she may have hoped that the dry and warm climate of California would help her rheumatoid arthritis, which she had been dealing with for many years. In 1884, she bought a lovely little 2-story farmhouse, or cottage, depending on the source, on 40 acres in San Jose. It had 8 rooms, so it wasn't super big. She named it Yanada Villa. And she didn't live there all alone and secluded from the world. It was quite the opposite. Her niece, Marion Daisy Merriman, moved in right away, and Marion lived there with her for 15 years. According to firearmsresearch.org, Sarah hired 2 architects to convert her little farmhouse into a 7-story Victorian mansion. And I mean, why wouldn't she, right? She had all this money, and wealthy men all over the country at that time were building huge mansions. So why not her, right? And she had the plan that her 2 younger sisters and their families were going to come live with her. So she was building it with multiple family members in mind.
Right. She was hoping that, that her family members would go there. She's got $630 million, well, in today's money.
Right.
So she had the money to make them all comfortable.
Right.
I mean, why wouldn't you? You'd want to give to your family.
Right.
And she was so smart. I mean,
she was brilliant, and we're going to get into some of the things she invented in a little bit. So, if you remember, Sarah's father had some carpentry skills, and Sarah soon learned after moving into the cottage that she was really good at designing her own blueprints. So, in some ways, renovating the cottage into a 7-story mansion may have felt like a hobby. I mean, a very expensive hobby, but a hobby, something to keep her mind occupied. But for whatever reason, the rumors began immediately about the widow in the mansion. Some historians speculate that people were upset by Sarah choosing to renovate and build during a time of financial depression for most of her neighbors. They may have seen it as a slap in the face that she was spending so much money to expand a perfectly good house when they were losing their own homes. Others speculate that there was a change in gun culture at that time, and that in the decades after the Civil War, people like the Winchesters were seen as profiteers from death. Regardless of why, in 1895, the San Francisco Chronicle ran an article about Sarah's odd construction project and questioned why she was still renovating. Within weeks, people began whispering about the tormented spirits that were telling Sarah Winchester that the only way she could repent for their deaths was to build and build and build.
And that's what happens when you have nosy, jealous neighbors.
And newspapers that will print anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was a target.
Right. So, what many people don't realize, according to the firearms article, is that Sarah didn't spend endless hours alone in the house, communicating with the dead. She actually spent way more time away from the house than actually in it. This was because she actually owned other property, including a house in Atherton that was even closer to her family, and she had a houseboat that she loved to take out on the water. As for the idea that she was just throwing money at the house with no care for how her neighbors were faring, she actually paid her construction workers very, very well for the time, actually helping those struggling through the 1893 Depression. And I also saw something really interesting on Reddit. It was a former employee at the Winchester Mystery House who was saying that one of the reasons that Sarah allowed so many carpenters and workers into the house, and the reason she had so many projects, was because she was letting them practice their skills in her house. So they may not have been like the best. She was giving them practice space so that they could learn the trade and then go out and make money. So that's interesting to me.
Well, yeah, she kept people employed continuously.
Right. And then gave people that weren't quite there yet the opportunity to hone their skills.
Right.
So that whole idea does make a lot of sense when you look at some of the details in the house that don't make sense, like the skylights that open directly into another ceiling and have no view of the sky, or the trap doors set into floors that don't lead anywhere. There are tiny doors leading into massive rooms and massive doors leading into tiny rooms. When the mansion was complete, Sarah invited the community to events in her gardens, and she hosted plays in her ballroom. And yet, the rumors persisted. Like the seance room. People went on and on about the seance room in the house that Sarah used every night to communicate with the ghosts. There's actually zero evidence that there was ever a seance room in the house. None. And some of the architectural details that people find very strange actually had practical explanations. And Wes will get into those after this quick break. Hey, did you know? Sometimes the party tricks you're known for can become Guinness Book of World Records. Like Joel Strasser, who owns 10 world records for putting stuff in his beard. Most impressive Strasser record? Toothpicks. All 3,500 of them. Kimberly Kimmy Winter holds the record for loudest burp at 107 decibels, or as loud as a motorcycle at full throttle. She drank coffee and beer prior to her attempt for maximum volume. Andre Ortloff holds the record for fastest assembly of a Mr. Potato Head while blindfolded, completing the feet, arms, face, and hat in just 12.11 seconds. Kids can do it too, like 13-year-old Avery Emerson Fisher, who completed 38 magic tricks in under 1 minute, while underwater and in full scuba gear. So the next time one of your goofy friends says, "Hey, watch this," at your next party, consider they may just have what it takes to break a weird record. Who'da thunk it?
All right, we're back. And before the break, Beth was just getting started with some of the architectural details in the house that people find really strange, but actually had some practical explanations. For example, the shallow, tiny, and winding steps of some of the staircases may have been due to her rheumatoid arthritis. It was easier for her to climb stairs that were built that way. And the staircases that led to nowhere and just end at the ceiling were most likely due to the 1906 earthquake. On April 18th at 8:14 a.m., Sarah was asleep in the Daisy bedroom when the San Francisco earthquake hit. She was unharmed, but the house was not. Chimneys collapsed, and an entire wing was destroyed, and the 7-story tower toppled over. The damage could have been a lot worse, except she had had the foresight to build the house on a floating foundation. When Sarah began to rebuild, she simply ceilinged off several of the areas without first removing the staircases that had once led to the upper floor. And the 2nd-story door that leads directly outside, and a deadly drop straight to the ground, was most likely a door used by workmen. They attached a pulley system and hauled supplies up to the 2nd floor through that door. From 1910 until her death in 1922, there was actually very little construction work done on the house at all. It certainly wasn't the 7 days a week, 365 days a year whirlwind that had been perpetuated in the media. Not by a long shot. But Yanata Villa was also ahead of its time in a lot of ways. According to the Firearms article, the mansion had gas lighting and indoor plumbing that included faucets and showers. It's also possibly one of the very first houses to ever have wool insulation. Sarah also insisted that several of the pillars be installed upside down, not because she was kooky, but because she felt they would be more stable that way. And she was right. Architect Frank Lloyd Wright did the exact same thing. Sarah was also an inventor. In fact, she invented the annunciator, the earliest form of an intercom system. She was the one who came up with a system that allowed people to speak to each other from different rooms.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she was ahead of her time. She was definitely a smart cookie.
Yeah.
Now, this was very helpful to her staff that cooked for her and maintained the daily runnings of the household, because it wasn't just her and Marion living there. They had servants. The inside running water, both hot and cold, also made things easier for her staff. Sarah also invented a push-button lighting system for the house. The drainage system that she invented for her greenhouse made it so that all the plants could be watered at the same time, and the used water would go directly to the kitchen sink to be reused again. And on top of all that, she invented a wash tub that had an attached soap tray and washboard. And yet the rumors persisted about the eccentric widow in the mansion, who was always building, trying to stave off angry or tormented spirits. These rumors hurt Sarah deeply, especially towards the end of her life, and she rarely had visitors to the house. And if visitors did come, she would never allow them to take any photographs. Now, in one way, it made her feel more protected from gossip, but in another way, it backfired because it only fueled speculation and rumor. Like those people who said that she met with her foreman every single morning, and how every night she met with the spirits to get their okay on the next day's plans.
People were ruthless.
They really were. And I imagine it was because some of them were jealous. And perhaps they just didn't know what was going on. And they didn't know about her rheumatoid arthritis and her other problems, you know?
She was a very, very private person. Like, she didn't keep a lot of journals.
Right.
And in her letters to people, she didn't reveal very much. So.
And perhaps as she was that way with her neighbors and other people she didn't know, they might have seen it as, okay, she's this multimillionaire that's just a snob.
Right.
And she doesn't like us, so let's make up rumors about her.
Mm-hmm.
Before her death in 1922, Sarah donated a whopping $1,325,000 to the chest clinic she had helped fund decades earlier in honor of her husband. Her niece Marion inherited everything inside the house, but not the house itself. Marion kept what she wanted, but then auctioned off all the other stuff that she didn't. So, unfortunately, none of the items in the Winchester Mystery House today belong to Sarah Winchester. The mansion was sold to a group of investors who then leased the property to John and Mamie Brown. John Brown was a roller coaster designer, famously designing the Backety-Back Railway, one of the first ever wooden coasters.
Have you ever been on a wooden coaster?
No.
They hurt.
I'll never know because I'll never go on a roller coaster. They scare the hell out of me.
Well, the wooden ones don't really, I mean, they're on platforms off the ground, but they don't go upside down or off to the side. You're pretty much straight up and down the whole time. But going along the wooden tracks, it's like, dun, 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 dun. It's very painful.
Yeah, I've watched them, and I don't mind when you go to an amusement park and see them. I mean, I kind of sit there wondering, you know, is one of these things going to come off the rails while I'm down here?
You would wonder that while you're sitting there.
There's so many amusement park accidents. And railway, these coasters, it does happen.
Yeah, I know.
Often.
I know. Anyway, back to our story.
Yeah, if you like coasters, well, I'm happy for you. They're just not for me. They scare the death out of me.
I like them. I go on them. Well, I haven't been to an amusement park in forever, but I used to go on all of them.
Now, the Browns initially planned to install a wooden roller coaster on the property and basically turn it into an amusement park. But public sentiment changed their minds. So instead, they opened the Unata Villa, as a tourist attraction instead, offering tours of the property to curious looky-loos. And they encouraged all the whispers about it being filled with ghosts. Now see, that's just as disturbing to me as the roller coasters, because they shouldn't be perpetuating this idea about ghosts.
Right.
Now, Harry Houdini got wind of the house and came to visit in 1924. He hoped to debunk the claims that it was haunted, and it's generally agreed that he did. But what people really remember about Houdini's visit is that he was the one who said it was a mystery house and should be promoted as one. And so the Browns, being astute business people, did just that. From that moment onward, Sarah Winchester's house became known as the Winchester Mystery House, and the story of her communing with the dead and tirelessly rebuilding her house was cemented in American pulp culture forever. Now, despite a lot of the mystery being explained and the insistence by historians who have studied Sarah Winchester that she was never into the occult, there are some strange things about the Winchester house, like the number 13. According to usghostadventures.com, the house has 13 bathrooms and rooms with 13 windows. There are also 13 ceiling tiles in the entrance hallway. Some of the closets have 13 hooks, and some of the staircases have 13 steps. Now, we can speculate all day behind the meaning of the number 13 to Sarah Winchester. I mean, the number is definitely deliberate in her planning of the house, but what it signified to her, well, we may never know. And I find that funny because in the hospital, we never had a room 13.
Did you have a room 14?
Yes.
Then you did have a room 13.
Well, I guess so, if you want to look at it that way.
Buildings with, 14 or 13 floors, but they go from 12 to 14 on the elevator. You
Right.
still have a 13th floor.
Yeah, it's just not numbered that way.
Right.
And perhaps I'm thinking maybe she just liked the number 13. Maybe
Well,
it was
yeah.
her favorite number.
Yeah, people have, certain connections to numbers all the time, and it doesn't mean that they're negative.
No. I also came across some speculation that she was involved with the Freemasons, and the teachings of Sir Francis Bacon were important to her. There are several websites that try to prove that there are all kinds of Freemason symbols in the house, as well as numerology related to Francis Bacon. Now, that might be true, or it might not be. We could do multiple episodes just on Francis Bacon. He was involved in everything from basically proposing the idea of the scientific method to helping establish the 13 original colonies. It's even been argued that he wrote a bunch of plays attributed to Shakespeare. Some historians have tried to prove that Bacon was a Freemason, or at the very least, a Rosicrucian. Since Sarah came from a rather progressive family who were open to all kinds of ideas, it makes sense that she would be well educated in the life and philosophy of Francis Bacon, and she may have incorporated elements from his teachings in her designs. But since Sarah was an incredibly private person, it's not something we may ever be able to prove. But with that said, the Winchester Mystery House isn't totally explainable. It is, in many ways, both wacky and weird. And frankly, there does seem to be some ghosts in the house. Well, two anyway, with one believed to be Sarah herself. The other is the wheelbarrow ghost, also known as Clyde. What a name for a wheelbarrow ghost. Clyde.
Clyde, the wheelbarrow ghost.
Interestingly enough, it's the official Winchester Mystery House site itself that shares the most information about the hauntings they have, more than any other site except for U.S. Ghost Adventures.
That is interesting.
It is. I wonder why. But here are some of the experiences that people have claimed to have at the Winchester Mystery House. First, the most common claim is that people hear disembodied sounds, like footsteps, throughout the house all the time. For example, one of the maintenance workers named Denny claimed that while he was in the water tower one day, he heard someone walking up the stairs above him. Concerned that a visitor was in the off-limits tower, he went up the stairs to tell them that they needed to get out for their own safety. As he paused going up the stairs, he could clearly hear someone continuing to walk up even higher. But when Denny got all the way to the top, there was absolutely no one there at all. There was also a former couple employed as round-the-clock caretakers who claimed they were woken up night after night by the sound of a ringing alarm clock that they could never locate. The second most common claim is that people feel someone tugging on their clothing while they are touring the house. The third most common claim is people catching a glimpse of shadow people out of the corner of their eye. One of the former marketing directors for the mansion was taking photos of the exterior of the mansion one day when they caught something unexpected in a window. It appears to be the shadow of a person peering out from inside the house. Now, the most commonly cited apparition at the mansion is the Wheelbarrow Man, who has been affectionately nicknamed Clyde. Clyde is often seen wearing 19th century clothes. Believed to be a former workman at the mansion, Clyde's ghost has been seen quite frequently in the mansion's basement and in the ballroom tending to the fireplace. He generally has a wheelbarrow with him, full of ash or coal, as if he's in the middle of the household duties that he carried out on a daily basis. Clyde has also been helpful. According to U.S. Ghost Adventures, there was one time when an employee was up on a ladder. Out of nowhere, they felt as if a human tapped them on the shoulder. He turned to look around and became a little unsteady. When he turned back to his work, he felt the hand support his lower back as if Clyde was steadying him. In a way, Clyde is more of a residual haunt. However, visitors to the mansion have often remarked how cool they think it is to have someone on the staff dressed in period clothes, just doing their own thing as if they are part of the background. They are totally confused, of course, when they are told that the mansion doesn't have any staff that dresses up like that.
That would be cool.
Yeah, wouldn't that be really cool to visit someplace and you think that they have these people that just dressing up in that period to make your stay more pleasant or your visit more pleasant. And then you come to find out that they just don't have anybody there like that.
Right.
And it also reminds me of stories that I've heard where couples check into a hotel and then when they're going towards the elevator, they meet a bellhop.
Mm-hmm.
And they, insist on taking their bags.
And it's always an older man.
Right.
Right.
And come to find out there is no bellhop. And it was a supposed ghost of someone that had died, that had worked in the hotel many, many, many years ago.
Yes.
I love stories like that. And it is also believed that Sarah Winchester is still in her house. She often appears as a shadowy figure who lets her displeasure be known if something upsets her. For example, during one tour that paused in the Daisy bedroom, where Sarah was sleeping when the 1906 earthquake hit, one of the tour guides heard a very loud sigh just outside the bedroom door. Thinking that it was a guest that had gotten bored and wandered off on their own, the tour guide popped her head out into the hall just in time to see the shadowy apparition of a petite woman round the corner. Now, I attempted to find some more first-person accounts of things employees experienced at the house, and I found a couple interesting threads on Reddit. A poster who went by Base Relevant 9969 said that they worked at the mansion on overnight shifts when they were the only person there. At times when they'd be sitting in the front garden in the middle of the night, the automatic door to the gift shop would open and shut for no reason. There were other times when they'd be in the back offices putting away equipment, when they'd hear conversations coming from inside the main house. Wondering who the heck was in the house that late at night, they'd open the office door and peer in, expecting to see people, but there was never anyone there. But to be honest, the majority of responses were from people saying that they heard other employees share creepy ghost stories of things that had happened to them, but that they had never experienced anything themselves. One surprising guest at the Winchester Mystery House arrived in 1969. Walt Disney wanted to add a Haunted Mansion-themed ride to Disneyland. The exterior of Disney's Haunted Mansion is based on the Shipley Lydecker House in Baltimore. But after visiting the Winchester Mansion, Disney revamped his entire plans for the interior of his ride. He wanted it to look like a grand mansion, but with several odd and unnerving details. So he included the number 13 prominently in the ride, just like it was in the Winchester house. And he included staircases that led to nowhere. One of the mysteries of the Winchester house was actually solved in 2019. For many years, it was assumed that all the beautiful stained glass in the mansion was all made by Tiffany. According to the Times-Union, during some restoration work being done in one of the dining rooms, workers removed part of the wall. Behind the wall was a perfectly preserved envelope bearing the name Pacific American Decorative Company. Now, this was big news because for years, architectural historian Jim Wolfe had been trying to prove that the stained glass was made by a glass artist named John Mallon. John Mallon wasn't employed by Tiffany. He owned the Pacific American Decorative Company. So in some ways, the Winchester Mystery House has been slowly revealing some of her secrets. And in some ways, it does indeed seem to be haunted. But the true story of Sarah Winchester is one that deserves to be told. And even if people are right, let's say the story about her building and building to appease the tormented spirits of those who died by the Winchester rifle is true. Her life was much, much more than that, and deserves to be told. Her accomplishments should figure into the story just as much, if not more. So there you have it, everyone, the Winchester Mystery House. Now, we love this place, but I think Beth and I both agree that it's a shame that the house doesn't get more recognition, or Sarah Winchester doesn't get more recognition for her inventions and her architectural design abilities, and that they still kind of play up on the whole seance thing and
the legend and lore of her being tormented by spirits,
which is absolute garbage.
We have no evidence of it whatsoever.
Now, we understand that it sells tickets, brings
movies,
people to the place.
Yeah, and to movies and to paranormal shows and all that stuff.
Right, but Sarah Winchester was so much more than all of that.
Right. And we're not saying the house is not haunted. I 100% believe the people who had experiences there.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
I'm just saying, or I just feel that perpetuating the legend that she was tormented by spirits and that's why she did what she did is not necessarily validated by any historical evidence.
Right. And, I can't believe that we don't hear more about her inventions.
Yeah.
I mean, they were remarkable.
Push-button electricity.
A lot of these older homes still have the push button on their walls.
Yes, and the early intercom system, she invented it. She was the first one.
It's incredible.
I know.
Yeah, it makes me sick. There are a lot of, how should I say it, ghost TV shows out there where they do try to get history right on most of the places that they go, right? There are some truly good ghost shows. And then you have these fools that just want to perpetuate, I mean, look at the whole Annabelle doll thing going around right now. What a bunch of malarkey that is. And people are going to, well, this guy just died, has to do with Annabelle. I mean, come on.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
Right.
And, they're just tied to the other person that I don't care so much for on one of the ghost shows that fakes everything. And I think his mentors were the other two that are well known in the paranormal world that did more to harm it than they did to help it.
Right.
We won't say their names. But if you're really into the paranormal and the supernatural, I mean, you kind of know who the frauds are out there, and you kind of know who just made movies to sell tickets.
Right. And, Mr. Rivera's name is forever going to be tied to the Annabelle doll now. And like we said with Sarah Winchester, his life is more than that and shouldn't be tied to that doll forever.
But like we said, that's just our opinion. I mean, we try to do everything as factual as possible. And I know a lot of stuff that we covered, Bigfoot, and a lot of things can't be proven, but they can't be disproven either.
Right. And when things can be disproven,
then the history should reflect that.
Right.
I mean, much like a lot of the history that we grew up learning going to school. And we find it now to be total garbage.
Right.
Like Columbus. Among other famous people. It's just not right.
Well, history is told by the winners, right?
I guess so.
All right, everybody. If you would like to know more about the Winchester Mystery House or about Sarah Winchester herself, you can always check out our sources in our show notes. I think we have quite a few for this episode.
That we do. So delve deeper into it yourself. Find out the facts for yourself. And always question everything.
Even us. If you don't agree, then find your own answers too.
Right. That's what life's all about. Well, with that said, thank you again for joining us, all you fellow wanderers. And we'll see you all next week for an all-new episode of Where Our Minds Wander.
See you soon. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to traveling with you again to the places where our minds wander.
If you like what you heard, please take a moment and provide us with a 5-star rating and a comment on your favorite listening platform. It really helps us move up the list and become more visible on the podcast charts so new people can find us.
And thank you all for your continued support.
See you next week for an all-new episode.